Awesome. So David, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, how you kind of found these portfolio. We chatted on TikTok Live, so you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
that. But tell me where you're at, like in your career, what you're trying to do, and what you would like to sort of figure out or get from this portfolio review.
Well, I mean, and the story, the whole story itself is very long and convoluted. I started off in a, I mentioned it when we were talking. I started off in a position where I didn't want to be. I went to school for as soon as I got out of high school for engineering, failed out miserably. Started to work in construction with my dad. Worked there for 5 years, hated it, and then decided to, I didn't go traditional 4 year college. I decided to go for Full Sail University and mixed reviews, but I had a great time. I learned a lot, and yeah, so I graduated that, and I started that in 2019. Graduated to 2021, and currently working for contracted for Zillow, but I'd like to get a graphic design position. I honestly don't know 100% where I want to go. I know I want to do I want to do photo composition, photo composites. I love photo composites. One of my favorite things in photo and design. That the marketing aspect. Advertising. But movie posters is something that I dream to work on. I love working on movie posters. I have one on my portfolio that I worked on during school. Currently doing also the sorry cats. um, Working on the Google UX design certificate just to try to boost up my resume for potential clients or potential jobs and everything. But I haven't put too much effort into as much as I really need to into my portfolio. I have done this. This is I created the logo for myself and then just put everything. This is all just a Adobe portfolio.
What are you
Just
currently doing for Zillow right now that they have you contracted?
we're working on floor plans for the houses that are for sale. Working on floor plans and things of that sort.
Is it like, but like when you say floor plans, is it like design? Like what, like tell me, like
It's
give me a
it's
sense
it's
of
a
what you're doing.
it's a design esque, like you need to have the design mentality, but the program pretty much does a lot of the work. At least now it does, because they had the AI developed. Before, not so much. Before, it required more, so you need to be precise about these things. We used to use a program called Virtual Architect, but now they ended up, with the development of the AI, they have their own system now. So, but it is, creating floor plans, making sure things are lined up with, how the houses are and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool. It doesn't use any of the Adobe products or anything,
Sure, yeah.
but
Okay.
yeah,
Um,
that's
so
one of that's what I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish your
I
sentence.
was gonna say that one that you were looking at, the ad campaign for the Stream Deck. That was one that I was looking into redoing completely,
Hmm.
because what you see there is just what I finished in school, and I didn't know how to go about it the right way.
Sure. So it sounds like you want to get into design, like you're kind of
Yeah.
still sorting it out. In terms of like what you want to do, you mentioned like photo compositing. Can you give me a little bit more of like what your ideal role is, or like what you would love to do? Because like photo compositing starts to step into the realm of kind of like photography, photo assistant, photo retoucher, things like that.
Oh,
So
really?
and I know Full Sail, like I had a couple of friends that went through Full Sail, and I know they did a bunch of stuff. Some of them went specifically into like the film program and stuff like that. So I know, it's a school that you end up kind of working on a bunch of different things to help you figure out what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
But give me a little bit more background on like what it is that, like, what you would ideally love to be doing today.
When throughout the whole schooling and everything, I did like, and I did some freelance Upwork and everything. I did like the logo designs. I did like the branding aspect. I like the, the advertising and everything. And when it comes to the photo composites, things like movie posters, ads, things of the sorts. Uh, just and just putting things together in that aspect. Not necessarily. I did a bit of photography, but it wasn't the route that I wanted to go. Uh, but putting things together in a sense, laying layout design is something that I want to work on, something that I
Okay,
want
so
to push
that
further.
makes more sense. Like more so of like working with image and potentially doing slight edits here and there, but at the end of the day, like laying things out, laying the information out,
Yeah.
text, copy
Okay.
along with imagery and stuff like that. Okay. That makes more
Mhm.
sense. Because again, like photo compositing, like makes me think of like real estate photography when you're going in and taking like a million different photos and then like putting those all together to get like the perfect like interior photo of the house and places like that. So I think like making sure that we both are on the same page with that is going to help. Um, Looking at your portfolio, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So you have a bunch of stuff here, right? You
Yeah.
have brand identity, ad campaigns, website redesign, there's a lot. And the problem that usually happens is that like people don't know what it is you actually do. And
Yeah. That's what
similar,
I was
like
thinking.
similar here, like I'm kind of like confused. It's like, you're telling me this idea of what you want to do, but at the same time, um, it's kind of hard to see that because you have so many different things here. So if you go to like apply to jobs and send this to people, they're gonna be like, oh, well, yeah, I get he can do a lot of stuff, but like, does that focus in the one area that I need them to be really good at,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's one thing that kind of jumps out to me. Um, I'm trying to think of like, you know, when I think of like the type of design of like working with imagery, text, like putting posters together, putting artwork together, very much reminds me of like when I used to do when I worked for a media company that had a TV channel. And at the time I was doing their what they called off-air marketing. And I was doing a little bit of their digital as well. But basically I was taking in their imagery assets that they would get from photographers and I would create posters for print. I would create posters for the digital platforms like Netflix and Hulu. I would, we would do ads, we would do, campaigns like that and stuff like that. Does that sound like a place that you'd want to be in, or
Yes.
things that you'd want to be doing?
Yeah, that sounds more like what I'm doing. Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see a movie poster that I worked on. As a fake movie.
This one?
Yeah, that's a movie poster. And then in some of the brand identities, you can see some of the posters that we put together. Those are the kinds of things that I do want to work on. I love just putting these things together and creating things that weren't there before. Because
Gotcha.
you can see the castle and the two characters there. Putting those things together and creating a story essentially.
Yeah, so I see what you mean by like compositing now. Like you're taking all these different assets and you're compositing them together. I get that part. It
Yeah.
makes more sense.
Yeah, so
Um,
what you were saying before about what you were doing is more in line to where I want to push my
mhm.
career.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few things. One, I would continue to, like kind of like what you did with the Stream Deck project. I would continue to make these sort of self-initiated projects. I would definitely put together, I would rethink like, okay, cool. If I want to do this, I want to show only this stuff, first of all, right? So I want to make sure that I'm showing this work, I'm showing like the best possible work that I have. And also, like, if we just take this warrior poster, for example, we need to, oh, that's weird. We need to kind of like think of it um like I get you're working in Adobe Portfolio right now, and it's totally fine. Um, but like from a practical standpoint, like let's just look at it like very like bluntly, like great, you have your poster here, but I'm not seeing the whole thing all at once just by scrolling, like
Yeah.
that breaks the constant like flow of what I have to like mentally put together as I'm like, okay, cool, like there's not a lot of things up here for me to look at, so I have to scroll, and then I'm not getting all this image at once. So how do
Mm.
we remedy that? Well, you can put together like a mock of this poster like on a wall or like in a movie theater, whatever it may be. You need to kind of like find those that are going to work for this project.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I think you need to kind of be doing is like, there's no copy on here whatsoever. There's no description of the project. There's nothing telling me what happened here. So what ends up happening is, as a viewer, as someone who comes to someone's website to look at work, when I don't see anything explaining the process, like that just kills it for me. And I immediately, there's this association with the work being quick, fast, didn't take any real time. It was just something that was slapped together. And I know that's not the case, but inadvertently what happens when there's no like thought or articulation put on the page, people immediately kind of think, oh, they must have just threw this together really quickly,
Okay.
because
Makes
part
sense.
of being a designer, part of being a creative is explaining that thought process and explaining how you got to this,
Yeah.
even if it's like an introduction of what the movie was about, and who you worked with, who you ended up how you worked with the team to create these assets, how you went back and forth in terms of the revision process to get this thing correct, whatever that may be, that needs to be on the page, that needs to be explained. So that's like
Okay.
super key as well. Let's click through some other stuff. So I'm guessing this is like a project that encapsulates your 2020. And this
That
is,
would, yeah.
again, this is
Mhm.
cool and all, but like, what I'm saying here of like, there's nothing here explaining to me what's happening. And the way you're illustrating how this project got finished is exactly how people think of this, of like, oh, he made this, he did this, and then it was done. Like, it doesn't tell me the story. It doesn't give me a sense of how much work went into this. And so immediately, like, it's kind of written off as something that was done really quickly. And
Yeah.
again,
Makes
that is
sense.
something you want to avoid, obviously, when we're trying to show work to get positions, get gigs, get hired, freelance things.
Yeah.
So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well. And if you want to show that, like, you were kind of sketching in what the final product was going to be here, like, you need to kind of explain that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
let's go back here. Yeah, I don't know, like there's so many different things here that it's hard for me to know what to click to get a sense of what you do, right? So like, tell me to click on something that is like one of the best projects you think that you've done.
Uh, Probably the brand identity for Kibachi Kitchen or the website redesign for the Zion National Park.
Okay.
It would be that one above.
Let's open this one. Oh, that's weird. Okay, cool. So, all right, you have a little bit more stuff going on here, right? Like, okay, the story begins with a gentleman. Now, was this actually done, or is
No,
this?
this was a school project.
Okay, cool.
And this was more in line with putting things together. This was my first big project at school, and this was where I realized that I wanted to start doing the layouts and putting things together and
Mhm.
everything. So
Gotcha. Quick question. Do you like in terms of design, what I'll say design inspiration, um, like, do you look at other studios? Do you look at other work? Like, what do you find to be inspiring? Like, what do you like to look at, and things like that?
oh, I'm always looking at things. If it's not on TikTok, it's going to be on Instagram. If it's not on Instagram, it's going to be Pinterest, Behance, Dribble.
But I mean, like, is there a specific, like, sure, I mean, we all look at stuff, right? But I guess what I'm trying to get to is like, are there specific designers or there are studios or there are agencies that you look at and you're like, man, I want to do work like that?
There's uh as far as like imagery is concerned, there's one gentleman on YouTube that I watch a lot that I want to emulate his style of work and his level of intelligence in terms of Photoshop. As far as studio is concerned, I don't know particularly any studios that I'm always looking, but I haven't found any in particular that I want to see about. And as far as studios and people for advertising and layouts and everything, I haven't found anyone like deeply that I'm deeply
Drawn to.
interested, yeah, drawn to. I saw you come, you came across my For You page. I followed you, and I was instantly like, I need to try to get in touch with this guy, and that's why
So
I'm here.
so I ask because I think it would be really good to start seeking those out. One, because it's going to give you a goal in mind of like what you want to achieve, right? So like, for example, like when I look at branding work, like I'm constantly looking at stuff, for not only for like the newsletter I put out, but for just like work that I want to attain and achieve, right? Or clients that I want to work with. And that's the other thing too. When you start to look at these agencies or these studios, it starts to give you a sense of like who they're working with, and you can start to ask yourself, like, do I want to work with clients like that to create work like this, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
really important because when you're, and I don't want to say like when you're not, when you're just not in that world, like, because part of, I guess, the way I look at it is part of being a designer is being familiar with what is going on. What kind of design is going on? What are, I don't want to say trends, but like, what are the common practices that people are doing right now? And being sort of in touch with that a bit. And I think that would be super helpful because, again, at the end of the day, it's going to give you more of a direction to create the work that you want to actually be doing by looking at, these people, what I would kind of call as like your heroes, right? Like these are your design heroes. These are your creative heroes. These are the people that you want to be like in the future. And, a lot of people will say like, yeah, when you're young, you start off by copying a lot of their work just to kind of get yourself into the sort of gives you a little bit of like background of like, okay, can I make this or can I replicate this in a way? And it helps you understand their process in doing that. And I think that would also be really helpful as well. Go off, find some work that you think is really interesting, take it, right? And be very, if you decide to put this in your portfolio, be very clear about it. Like, and I actually don't recommend like putting that stuff in your portfolio because it's more of like an exercise and it's more of like practice for you to get better.
Yeah.
But I would do that and try to make it your own style. Like I've done this plenty of times. I have like a million different files that are just what I call like, they're just titled sketches, right? And they're just me practicing something that I found interesting. And can I like figure out how they made it so that I can make it better and make it my own? And I think that would be really helpful for you as well, because again, it's going to give you more direction. It's going to help you figure out like what it is you want to do exactly. Because I do see a lot of really cool, like I see some interesting things that you're doing here with this identity, right? Like this brand identity of Kubachi Kitchen.
Mhm.
And I think this could be pushed a lot more. And I think like, again, having that sort of those heroes in mind of like, these are the people, or this is the design I want to make, is going to give you a really good point to start working towards. And I think that's really important.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense actually.
I would, and it could be as simple as like, if you have a Pinterest or if you have a place where you save stuff, like create a board that's just like design inspiration or people, name it like design heroes, whatever it may be, and save the work that you like. And then when you have some time, put yourself, give yourself a little exercise of like recreating a piece of that or something, whatever it may be, right? Like the portfolio projects that you have, or the kind of like school projects that you do for your portfolio are great. And they show you like, basically like usually the brief and for this Kubachi Kitchen, I'm guessing it's like, hey, build a brand identity, build an ad, a magazine, a package, a website, do all of it, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really give you the like time that you would love to spend on, or that you would want to spend on, say, like a website design or a packaging design, because you're just rushing to get the project done. And now that you're out of school, you don't have this like, looming deadline. You can think back of like, okay, what was my favorite thing about that project, right? Was it the packaging? Was it the ad design? Like, was it the logo design? Whatever it may be. Take that favorite thing and then redo it in a way that kind of references this idea of like people that inspire you to make good work, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would do that. And again, like, I think you're in a place where you you're telling me you would like to do movie posters and stuff like that. But when I asked like, hey, what do you think are your best projects? You showed me this branding one. You showed me, or you picked out the branding one. You picked out the redesign for the website, which we'll look at now. And I kind of want to push you to like really think about like really think about what it is that you want to be doing, right? Because if you're telling me these are your best projects, that either means that you actually have some sort of affinity to doing this stuff, or you thought that you put the most time and effort into it, right? So I guess it's kind of a question to you of like really trying to figure out what it is you want to do, and then starting to create work with that in mind.
Yeah, makes sense. And for these two, it was more of the time that I put into them. I did enjoy both aspects, both jobs, or both projects, I mean. But I did end up putting more time into these two than I did most of the other ones. Because I ended up putting, a couple months worth of time into these projects. But I do see where you're coming from, and looking back on it, maybe there is more that I can do with these projects, more in tune to where it is that I want to go. And
Yeah.
I see that now, and thank you for that. But
And I
yeah,
think, again, I want to put a big emphasis on that step one being like finding the people. Because again, at the end of the day, like let's be realistic here in terms of like a designer's career or any sort of creative's career, right? There's always the bottom, right? The bottom of the hill that you have to climb. And that is usually like working for these places. That is usually, finding opportunities to learn from people that have more experience and things like that. And at the end of the day, to get those roles, you have to be creating work that they see valuable to their team, right? And
yeah,
that's why I think, again, that is step one. Like, you need to find those places that are going to inspire you to create better work, to create work that like is more in that area of the thing that you ultimately want to be doing. Then once you have those people that, you're whatever, 4, 5, 6 people that you look at and you're like, wow, this is awesome. Then you start to rework some of these projects, and then you start to rework some of the work in your portfolio, because that, again, that first step I find is always so key. Like whenever I'm not currently doing this, but when I do start to take on more client work again, I will be doing this myself. I will be going through and I will be saying, okay, who is it that I want to be working with? Who's currently working with those companies or those clients, right? I'm going to go look at them, and I'm going to go download what I call download everything that they're doing that the client at the end of the day sees helpful. And I'm going to say to myself, cool, how do I make that mine now? Like, what do I change? What is it? What differentiates my work from the next? And I'm going to go through that first step completely before I even start putting, anything on paper, creating work that people would find, that those clients are going to find useful or find attractive, whatever it may be. And, I like, you can go and start making now, like tomorrow, like we can jump off this call in 2 minutes and you can start making. But again, there's no goal, like there's no real objective, there's no real
yeah,
direction. You're just going to start making stuff because you find it interesting or whatever. And that's great. And that's fun to do. But if you want this to be your career, where you're doing this to support yourself, to pay your rent, whatever it may be, you need to have that direction a bit more kind of fine-tuned before you could just start going crazy and making whatever you want.
yeah. Of course, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to ask as well. Aside from having an appropriate portfolio, what do you see? How do you feel about mentorships and internships as well?
Well, mentorships and internships are different, right?
Yeah,
So
no, of course, I know that.
I would say internships are your first step.
Okay.
Mentorships are for people who this is my opinion.
Hmm.
Mentorships are for people who have a lot of money and they want to spend it and um they see the value in learning from someone that's been doing it for a while. And again, being a creative myself, I don't have that kind of budget to be spending on a business coach or whatever. I have friends that are business coaches. They charge 10K for the year.
You found it.
And, it's like once a month, twice a month where they talk to you and make sure you're on your goals. And I'm sure there are graphic design mentors that do the same thing, whatever. If you have that money and you feel like that's going to be valuable to you, go for it. Absolutely. Um, I don't think that's practical for me and for a lot of the creatives that I speak with for these reviews. They're not coming from a place of like, yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years and now I want to like re-figure out. They're usually younger in their careers, they're usually trying to figure it out and navigate the waters. And
Mhm.
so the next thing would be internships. Internships are great. Like I took an internship every semester when I was in university, and that really gave me a huge boost as soon as I graduated. That may not be the case for everyone, but even when you graduate university, you graduate from your program, you graduate from high school, there's nothing stopping you from getting an internship. Internships are a great way to learn. If it's paid, that's even better, which, obviously seek those out first, but that's going to give you like real world experience where you can really start to figure out, okay, cool, like is this work something like stuff that I want to be doing all the time? And then not only that, but you also start to figure out and learn about the design, the business of design, like the
Yeah.
business of working with clients, which I think a lot of people don't emphasize enough. So if that's where your head's at and you're thinking like, if you're kind of questioning an internship, I would 100% recommend it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done a couple applications, which actually leads me to my next question. What is the best way to stand out in such a saturated market? Because I've been applying for positions, junior positions, entry level positions, internship positions, and they're like 1,000 applications turned in, 1,200 turned in, and it gets really frustrating, because I've done countless amount of research on how to do it, but what are your thoughts on attempting to stand out, or to stand out amongst these 1,000 plus applications,
Sure,
for
yeah.
an employer.
So one thing I think is really important just to acknowledge and always accept is that like the market is always saturated. There's never a moment where like, yeah, you hear people talking on social media and stuff of like, these weird things and they're totally unrelated of like, yeah, when I started YouTube, it was, no one was doing it and blah, blah, blah. Those days are over, right?
Yeah.
Everything is saturated. Everyone is looking for the next platform to jump onto, whatever it may be. So like that's a given. And it's no longer an excuse to kind of let yourself get down on, that things aren't quite working out or hitting for you. All that means to me when that happens is that I'm doing something I'm doing something wrong or I'm not doing something as good as I could be doing, right? So with that in mind, I would look at it this way, right? If you're sending in these applications and they're just not connecting, there's a few things that you can do. One, I think, everything that we just talked about, like updating your portfolio a bit. Really quickly a note, like you have a lot of work, and if you're looking to apply to like apply to internships, the one thing I would recommend doing is slimming down your portfolio to be really focused on those internship opportunities, right? So if you're seeing an internship for movie poster design or whatever it may be, you need to have your portfolio replicate that. You need to be
Okay.
showing all that stuff. With that said, also just a quick recommendation when it comes to portfolio, when you're applying to internships, my thought is anywhere from 3 to 6 projects, and more so like 3 to 4 that are really honed in, that really show, you know, that you are applying your skills to this whatever the opportunity may be is really key. Um, The other thing I think, where are you located by? Are you in New York area?
Raleigh. No, Raleigh.
Oh, you're in Raleigh. You're in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So Raleigh, I'm not familiar with the market at all. I've lived in South Carolina for a total of 3 months this year, and I have no clue, but I know there are businesses like in and about, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Yeah.
So the thing that I would look at is find those studios, find those agencies, those companies that you want to work for. And if they're putting up an application for an internship, send the application in, but then you need to go ahead and do yourself a little bit more work. And you need to go and find the hiring manager on like LinkedIn or something, right? You need to message him or them. You need to then also find like one or two people on that team. And you need to start sending these people messages on LinkedIn, like send a connect, and then make sure you always, like, this is huge, make sure you always send a note. And I think it's like 300 characters that you can send that says like, hey, my name is David. I do X, Y, and Z. I just graduated, or whatever, from Full Sail. Like a quick 3 sentences. I saw you had an opportunity, an internship opportunity, and I would love to connect and show you some of my work if possible, to see if this might be a good fit, or if there might be an opportunity to work together, or whatever it may be, right? You need to wordsmith it a bit, but you need to just be sending those constantly. I think that is like the kind of workaround to this, like, oh, the market's saturated and everyone's sending in their applications. Yeah, I'm going to say that I say this nicely, but it's really easy and really lazy to just be like, all right, send the application in on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, press apply, great. Like that is they've made that really easy. And so that becomes like the default. But if you really want to get your foot in the door, you need to start banging on these people, banging on their doors and saying like, hey, my name is David. I do this. I really like your work. And I think that I would love the opportunity to learn from you guys. Is there anything available? And whether that's internships, junior design positions, whatever it may be, like no one is going to ever really like fault you for like sticking your neck out and really trying to get your foot in the door, right? Like if anything, it's admirable to be proactive like that, to be sharing and trying to introduce yourself and connecting with these people. And worst case scenario is they don't message you back, or they say, hey, listen, we don't have anything available right now. And then your reply is, great, I totally understand. Again, I really admire your work. So if there's any opportunity in the future, please keep me in mind. And by any chance, do you know anyone that's currently hiring, or do you know anyone that might have anything available? Like that's just only going to continue to like help you out in the future.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I've been making a lot of phone calls, but I've been getting the run around.
Yeah, phone calls now. I remember where I used to that used to be the thing. Like 10 years ago, you'd call and be like, hi, I'm just following up on my internship, or I'm just following up on my application. And you'd always get like the assistant or someone in the front desk. And
pretty much
very few times did I ever actually get to the end person. And I can't tell you, like, I don't think I've ever had that work out. So, like meeting people digitally is super easy. It's a little bit less confrontational or less like intimidating for people. And I think it's key, again, I just want to emphasize like that message that you send is really important, because it's really important to like wordsmith it in a way where you're not trying to quote unquote seem desperate for work. You want to say like, hey, I really admire the work that your company is creating. I would love to learn if there are any opportunities available. Simple as that. You don't want to be like, hey, I do this and I noticed you posted something. I think I would be a great fit. Like that just comes off a little too needy, that people are like, yeah, of course you need it. Of course you want this job. Like everybody else also wants this job. So you really just want to come at it from a place of like, I'm looking to better myself. And is there anything that you could maybe tell me that I like what I'm doing, in the same way that you've reached out for this portfolio review? I think of it as like when you're reaching out to these people, you're pretty much just asking them to look at your portfolio. Like, hey, just let me know if I'm doing anything right or wrong, or that I can improve on in that sense.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that's something that I'm going to look more into. because like I mentioned, the phone calls isn't working anymore. It's old school technology. But yeah, I'll have to look through LinkedIn. It's actually, you know, I'm always afraid of messaging people on LinkedIn because I always get the sense that I'm bothering them, and I feel like that's always my issue. So you
So
know,
what? You're bothering people. Like, who cares? Again, at the end of the day, it's no shame on you. You're going out there, you're hustling, you're trying to get,
no,
a
it
role
makes
so you can
sense.
get in this industry. And, like, if anything, you're standing out in that way, in a positive way, because you're being proactive about, like, hey, like, I want to learn from this, from what you're doing, like, and
Hmm.
I know that I can, use my skills in a way that's going to be helpful to your company. So, like, I think, yeah, there's always that internal feeling of like, oh my God, I'm bothering these people. But like, they get bothered by way worse than someone asking them like, hey, can you help me with my portfolio? Or like, you could, just kind of like teach me something that you guys are doing that I should be doing also, like,
Yeah, that's true.
so there's no reason to feel any sort of like shame or, like hesitation to do that.
Yeah, no, that actually makes sense, and it helps a lot hearing it from someone else.
Are there any other questions before we sign off?
Uh, Nothing in particular. I'm gonna take what you mentioned to heart and do a lot of research and everything. Uh, in the future, once I decide to work on the portfolio and everything, can I come back to you and come for another review?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You have my email. Shoot me a note. And yeah, once you start updating things or you start sending messages, if you want to like reconnect, that's totally fine.
Other than that, no, I appreciate your time, and I know it's been crazy, with your flights and everything. I
No
saw
worries.
the Spirit Airlines video that you posted.
Yeah. 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 Super fun.
But other
But
than that, no, I have to thank you. I have to thank you,
yeah,
for your
no
time
problem at
and
all.
your advice.
If like I said, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. You'll get an email after this review with like a few questions if you don't mind filling that out.
Cool.
That would be super helpful for me. And yeah, like I said, you have my email. So whenever you start to update stuff and you're unsure, shoot me a note. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Awesome, David. It was nice to meet you. Have a good one. All right.
Likewise. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.